Warning, this podcast has stories of real-life events and true crime that happens every day. These stories may contain adult language and graphic or disturbing details not suitable for everyone. Listener discretion is advised.
132 in Bush, I've got him at gunpoint. Check your left phone for going to full evacuation on your side. They're pulling them out.
911, advise ready for it. Can't put...
God!
Welcome to another episode of War Stories. I'm Tom.
And I'm Chuck.
And we are back this week, hopefully sans technical difficulties. Last week, we didn't know we even had technical difficulties until halfway through the week. But I'm really excited for this week. I'm always excited. I get very excited when we have different guests from all over the place, I guess. I don't know. But a place that I'm very familiar with, Contra Costa County. Right? Is that correct?
Triple C, Contra Costa County. That's right. San Francisco.
Right.
It's the biggest county that nobody's ever heard of. So, you know.
Well, I have, in fact.
Good.
Contra Costa County, only because I was on a task force with the state of California, and so we went everywhere.
Oh, right on.
You guys are up like Concord and just
exactly
like the
Antioch. I don't know if Antioch rings a bell.
Richmond.
Yep. Yeah. Richmond, Antioch.
Okay. So it's
Walnut
maybe
Creek,
the one person
go...
you've heard of it, I guess.
How close to Los Banos and Merced and Modesto area, Fresno?
Probably Los Banos were probably about 2.5 hours.
I was gonna say 2 hours. Yeah.
Modesto, Merced, a little closer. A lot of guys come from that area and go to work, you know, because we have a lot of Central Valley boys in our department, which is good, you know. It's nuts.
Yeah.
They say almond. They say things like almond. I'm like, there's an L in almond, but okay.
Well, our guest this week is Andrew. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. It's great to be here. I love chopping it up, and I'm excited to tell the story about Tablet Command and, you know, whatever my view of my own experience of a war story is, you know. There'll probably be some LA guys and New York guys like, whatever, that's not a war story. But
no, but here's the thing. You know what's amazing is, and we'll get into your background, but Chuck can speak to this a little bit too. We've had the big city guys on, and it's fascinating for the big city guys to talk, and for the county guys or the rural guys or whatever, they hear those stories. But what's amazing is inevitably we have guys on that are from, you know, smaller departments or rural departments, and then we find a lot of listeners are like, oh yeah, man, I've been there, I've done that, I've got the t-shirt. So it really, everybody listens from all types of agencies. So we're down with whatever.
Right on. Yeah, no, it's good. I'm excited.
Yeah. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about your background and how you got into firefighting and to begin with, where you landed. And then we'll talk a little bit about what you're doing as we get past your story.
Yeah, it sounds good. So I'm a California kid. I was born in like Gilroy, San Jose area, grew up in the Monterey Bay area.
Garlic capital.
That's right. Yeah, in fact, you know, you would smell the garlic from the plants there.
Yeah, they're not kidding about it being the garlic capital.
Oh my God, no, you can smell it being the garlic capital.
Yeah.
You know, very proud Italian California family, and grew up on the coast, you know, but before we moved from Gilroy to the coast, we lived out towards an area called Mount Madonna. When I was about 4 or 5 years old, I saw that whole mountainside just catch fire. And then, you know, airplanes, helicopters, fire engines, firefighters. And, you know, as a 5-year-old kid, that was like, you know, you're watching, you know, air tankers dropping retardant, you know, across mountain faces, and I'm seeing power lines explode. I thought it was the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. You know, I was like, oh my God, I want to do that. I want to be in that helicopter. I want to be in that environment. I want to be in that airplane, you know. And so I kind of filed that away. I kind of went down the student athlete route, and I was somewhat okay at school, and was somewhat okay at sports, and ended up doing college sports and that whole thing, and studying biology in college. I kind of, you know, was like, well, you know, you should be a doctor. And it was like, all right, saying that, going pre-med sort of was something I think cool for my parents to say at cocktail parties or whatever. But I just really, even within biology, I really got drawn towards natural science and like the natural world. And I love being outdoors as a kid.
Fire
You know,
science.
what's that? Yeah, yeah, it's exactly what it parlayed to. I actually wrote one of my senior papers on Western forestry succession, juxtaposed with wildfire, and like a history of wildfire in the United States. Because it's really fascinating to me that most of Western United States has evolved to burn in some way or another. In fact, that's how like seeds are spread and how forests are.
It's a natural part of the ecosystem.
Yeah, totally. So but there's like, all right, well, I'm an academic, so I'm going to go teach school after. So I graduated college, started teaching middle school science, and coached and, was having a good time. But it's like, I was a college athlete, and I was like, I think a lot of ex-college athletes, maybe ex-firefighters say it's like, if you're not using your body day in and day out, and you were used to doing that for the majority of your life, you start to go nuts. And
you're going to miss the adrenaline. You're going to miss.
Oh my God. All of that, the endorphins, the dopamine, all the serotonin, all the things that produce with exercise. And so, I was like, I gotta do something. And I also had to make more money. I think it's the funniest thing, like whenever we do, just sort of tangent, whenever we do union contracts, they're like, well, they're giving us this percentage and that. I'm like, yes. Because I just remember the first teaching contract I ever signed was for $17,000 a year.
Right.
And
wow.
I was like, I was like, I got to do something different. So I bailed out of teaching and went to California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, as it was called back then.
Cal Fire. Well, it was CDF.
It was CDF.
Yes.
How do you like that show, Cal Fire, on, I think it's NBC?
So like I watched two guys watching that show and playing a drinking game. And then I think I've watched all of about 4 minutes of that show. I just couldn't do it. I can't.
Oh, really?
I can't do those shows. Yeah.
Oh,
no,
I
watched it.
I like the Tacoma Fire, Tacoma FD. I like that one.
Well, that's funny because I was a Tacoma fireman for 4.5 years.
See, there you go.
So yeah. And so it's, we'll get into that in a sec, but yeah, that's I definitely literally, you guys, the first whiff of smoke, and the first bit of like, just soot on my face. I was like, forget teaching. I'll teach when I'm old, when I've spit out a couple vertebrae, into the back seat, or my knees get blown out, but I'm going to try and become a firefighter full time. So I did a couple.
I'm dating myself then, because I came on the job while you guys were still CDF. I remember being a cop when the changeover. So you and I are contemporaries, my friend.
I'm only tan and green. I never wore the blue Cal Fire uniform.
Oh wow, okay.
Oh yeah, no, we look like sheriffs. In fact, like it was like
I remember,
sheriff. Yeah, the only thing that separated us were like the Dickies pants, but and the logger boots, but no, it was like tan and green. I still have my uniform, like stat. I was like, this is gonna be worth something.
Game wardens, park rangers, you guys.
Yeah, 100%.
Fish and Wildlife.
Totally. Tan and greens. Tan and greens. Yeah, I never. There was talk about it. Oh, you guys are all going to get badges and you're going to go to blue uniforms. I never saw it.
Yeah.
Really
crazy.
Well, because I was there for 2 seasons and then I got married and we moved up to the Pacific Northwest. And I knew we were moving. I do whatever my wife tells me to do. She's probably like,
oh, you must be happily married.
No, she's yelling bullshit right now, I'm sure.
Right.
But so we moved up to the Pacific Northwest. I had taken some tests up there. And so the first fire department that hired me was called the Kent Fire and Life Safety. And it was a suburb of Seattle. And it was a great department, like really professional.
Oh, Kent, Washington.
Yeah, Kent, Washington.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Right there, on the south end of Seattle.
Sure.
Incredible professionals. I simultaneously was also on the Tacoma list.
I was going to say, that's right between Seattle and Tacoma.
Yeah, and we were living in the aroma of Tacoma at the time because my wife was working for a school there. And about 2.5 years into being a Kent firefighter, I got called up by Tacoma to say, hey, do you want to, your name's up on the list. Do you want to come in? I was like, At that point, I thought I'd put forestry behind me, which I'd left California kind of kicking and screaming, but I thought, all right, well, forestry is over. If I'm gonna do urban firefighting, I want to do it in the oldest city that I can possibly do that in.
Is that Tacoma?
In Tacoma.
You
And
just
so,
wanted brick houses and brass poles.
yeah, 100%. That's what they're.
I'm not. I get it.
No, 100%. Like my first fire station was Station 13. They had tin ceilings with like ornate designs. It's like, yeah, that was to like, reflect
Wow.
the heat from the
Yeah.
steamers. And then, the captain walked me downstairs. He goes, "You smell that?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "That's the horse piss from the horses. The spare teams were stored down there. There's still hoof marks in the back doors." So it was like, all right,
Wow.
this
You
is
can
old
still
time fire.
smell the urate
Yeah.
in the ground because there was just so much, and they just would pee down
Oh,
there or
horse piss,
whatever.
dude. It's pretty strong.
Yeah.
Fuck, dude. I mean, I've never smelled horse piss, but
Station 13 listeners right now, fact check that right now. Call in.
There you
crazy.
So no, and it was cool. It was a pretty cool department to work for. I would say that between Kent and Tacoma, I really cut my teeth as an urban firefighter.
Right.
We did a lot of structure fires in Tacoma. Had a good one right before Christmas where I thought, oh, this could cut it. This one cut it pretty close. And then right about 2007, again, wife comes into the picture. Like, I can't not stand the weather. I want to go back to California. We'd had a couple babies, want to raise them near your family, blah, blah. I was like, all right, it's so easy to get a fire job.
Especially in 2007.
Oh my
Dude,
God.
that's hard as shit right there.
Hard as shit. So I got hired with Contra Costa County Fire. And for me, that was like a really happy medium. In fact, I will say this, when I had gotten into con fire, as we call it, I did not realize how many structure fires they were going to. And I'm not saying like,
They're busy, aren't they?
they are. Yeah. I mean, like we have about a working fire a day.
Wow.
And sometimes more. And then you sprinkle in, a couple exterior fires from, some of our urban outdoorsmen and some wildland fires.
Camper.
Urban
Yeah,
outdoorsman.
Yeah. Our urban residents, or our outdoor residents, as we call them. And,
And if you don't know where we're talking about, this is across the bay from San Francisco.
Yes.
This is literally like when you think of San Francisco, you usually think of San Francisco and the surrounding cities like Oakland, Berkeley.
Yeah.
Well, this is where we're talking about. So imagine when we say urban camper, we mean like campsites, like
almost. Yeah.
Yeah, like tent city. Like we're not
Just
talking about the occasional, vagrant drunk.
Yeah, it's a very prevalent issue, I'll say politically correctly. In our
all across California, it's a big
Dude,
big
there's an
issue.
injunction. We'll talk about this in the locker room, but there's an injunction in San Francisco preventing people from clearing out the homeless. And a judge signed an order saying, I don't care who you are, you can't kick the homeless out.
Yeah, I will say, I think I can say this with some authority and a leg to stand on without sounding like mean or politically incorrect, but the majority of a lot of our exterior fires, I think, can be linked to that.
Right.
For sure.
Within our local responsibility area, but I'm gonna throw that political hot potato out the window. And what the cool thing about Contra Costa County Fire is we have, we don't have as many high rises as like Oakland.
Right.
But we have them, downtown Concord and downtown Walnut Creek have some pretty decent high rises. They're mostly sprinklered. I think we've had a handful of high rise issues even since I've been here. So like that's an issue. We have a huge waterway in the Delta. So we have water rescue program. We have bulldozers. We have helicopters. We have a wildland fire program.
Wow.
We have fire crews.
Right.
These 20-year-old kids that are just like eager and gung-ho, and they're marching out there in sticks of 12, and they're run by some really great captains. And then, of course, like I said, we're rolling to Oh, and then we have like, several major freeways running through our district. And so we're
Yeah.
rolling on extrications.
All
We have
ways.
oil refineries. So it's like all of the above. And we do get, I'm hesitant to be comparative to other departments, but we get our reps. And it's a great place to work. And I'm really proud to work there. It's real. When I first got there in 2007, the morale was shit, and it has just made, this is such a terrible pun. I didn't even mean to make this, but like a phoenix rising from the ashes. And part of the low morale actually has to
Bad
do
leadership.
some of it was that, but some of it was just kind of the economy and where the department was growing, but it had a lot of growing pains. And so there was just a lot going on at the time. People weren't really into training. And that is just, has done a 180 degree. You've got, a lot of our newcomers are just on board, like gung-ho to train, gung-ho to get after it, gung-ho to
I
go
love
on
training.
teams. Yeah, absolutely.
Training is great. Every time we ever had training, I was always for it. And everyone's like, "Oh, this is stupid." I'm like, "You're just fucking lazy, bro."
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
this is what hones your skills. This is what makes you a working professional. You were well, I'm law enforcement, says Tom. So I'd be like, we're professional cops. Like,
Yeah.
that's what we do. You're a professional firefighter, Andrew. Like, so when we have a chance to do any training, we need to take it.
Do
And
it.
those are like,
Love
"It's
training."
stupid."
Yeah,
No,
anybody that
dude, you're
hates
just
training,
lazy, bro.
what's wrong with you?
You have to.
Well,
I mean,
you're getting out of patrol, or you're getting out of working a
Yeah, you
fire,
get paid
or
for
you
it.
get paid to go hang out with your buddies and listen to a PowerPoint where the teacher's always giving you the answers because you need to pass. Like, just pay attention.
Yeah.
You learn something. Well,
Yeah.
your department has what, like 26 stations, I think.
We had to like 26. We're up to like 34 now.
Okay, so now, so this is why I want to bring this up. 34, and that's 700 square miles.
It's
34
big.
stations.
Yeah.
30,
Yeah.
like you're like, oh wait, and then you realize no, it's not city, it's county.
Yeah.
And 34 stations is a lot, but it's also 700 square miles.
Yeah.
That's actually 800 if you can't count all the water, I think.
Yeah, I think something like that. I'd have to get, I think the last time I looked at it, I was like, yeah, 710 or 740, depending on what day and the tide and all that.
Right, exactly.
But and then we have a lot of mutual aid partners. Like we work really well with Richmond Fire, and Rodeo Hercules, and Moraga Rinda, and San Ramon Valley, and
well, because some of those agencies don't have the resources that you guys have.
Yeah, that's correct. So things like bulldozers, fire crews, tiller trucks. I mean, now Richmond has trucks, and Moraga Rinda has trucks. Everybody has trucks, but it just, if you need more trucks or more engines, we can give them to you.
Exactly.
So no, I just so that's kind of where I am today.
So you've had the most fun in your career at Contra Costa?
I'd say I've had the broadest experience in my career at Contra Costa. I had a lot of fun in Tacoma. And I've had a lot of fun everywhere. I'd say the union meetings were really fun in Tacoma because those were but
go ahead.
No, it's just, I mean, when that environment, a lot of people lived in town. California, it's a little tougher.
Yeah.
So
especially where you're at.
Yeah, it's sad. We get a little bit more diffuse with regard to like how we hang out. And I think that's just part of the changing landscape of California, fire service.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say I've had the most diverse, and I've grown, I've had the most longevity. I've been there 17-ish, 18 years now at Contra Costa. So
wow.
I'm working as an acting battalion chief now. I'm still a captain by rank and by pay, unfortunately. Oof. But I'm sitting number 1 on the battalion chief's list, but I still may have to retake that test. I don't know if they'll promote anybody else off this list or not. But
that's BS. I always hate those
lists. If you're already doing if you're acting,
I know.
It's more important.
Please.
Yeah,
it's
more. That's more important than the stupid test. Is like what you score on paper. And we all know, working in law enforcement and fire, all those tests and orals are all skewed.
Yeah,
they're all skewed. So actually being able to do the job and actually visually able to see that the person's doing the job, I think that's worth its weight in gold, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think they should throw that test out. not throw it out, but like, don't even worry about it. He's already passed it. You're currently doing the job. Just give him the job. Like,
Totally. Oh, I
where
couldn't
else are
agree
you
with
going to
you
get
more.
like all this on the job training? Like,
Yeah.
he's proving himself right now, and you give the job to someone else. That's a slap in the face.
Well, so that's an interesting thing too, because what I thought the job was going to be when I interviewed and took the test and, did the whole assessment center, like in concept, I thought the job was a certain thing. And what it actually is in my 3 short months that I've been doing it as an actor is vastly different. And I thought I wouldn't love it I thought I would like it okay, or like it, and I actually really love it. I love it, and I thought leaving the companies as a fire captain being a fire captain has been the best part of my career by far. I've been lucky enough to have like really great companies. But this job as a battalion chief, has surpassed my expectations. I'm really, really, really liking it a lot.
Well, whether it's Tacoma, maybe Tacoma stories are safer since you're not there anymore. But whether it's Tacoma or Contra Costa, the floor is yours, man. We'd love to hear some of your best. It sounds like they run the gamut for sure.
Yeah, I mean, let's see. What do we have here? So I had a couple close shaves in Tacoma with some fires. We had this. It was really interesting. We had this incredible windstorm that sort of set down on Tacoma. Gosh, I'm trying to remember. I think it's like December. It was December 21st or 20th for sure, because I know it was like a few days before Christmas, and I think I had both kids, so I think it was 2006. And they had called a bunch of companies back. Oh, the storm of the century is coming. We're going to have, 80-mile-an-hour wind gusts and blah, blah, blah. And, everyone was like, all right, well, they've done this to us a million times before. Let's call everybody back. So
Sure.
it's not going to amount to anything, but whatever. So, the day had gone on pretty uneventfully. It was your typical, like, it was pissing rain. But the wind was relatively calm, and we were kind of watching all these news reports and red alert, and we are kind of like, oh, this thing's supposed to happen anytime. And we literally were like sitting around. Suddenly, about 8-9 o'clock, you start to feel the station kind of whooshing a little bit and filling up with, pressure and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, oh, the wind's coming up, whatever. It's not like it's like any other storm. Then we start getting calls, wires down, power outage, vehicle accident. And now it is really starting to rain. And now the wind is really starting to blow. At one point, we had we'd probably run about 7-8 calls before 8 p.m. And between about 8 and 9 p.m., we ran about another 10. So at about 9 o'clock, we're kind of sitting we're like driving back to the station. We're like, fuck it. Let's just park right here. Let's not even pull in and out of the station anymore. Let's just park right here in this Safeway parking lot. And literally the wind was starting to kick up now that I was like, as we were pulling in, I start yelling out of the backseat, hey, bogey's on your left. And there are these 2 shopping carts unmanned coming right at us, because the wind was so crazy. That's not the story, by the way. That's not the punchline, but it just gave you an example of like, all right, things are now, debris is starting to fly everywhere.
Right.
And my next story is kind of wind related as well, and that's here in Contra Costa. But so we keep running calls. We finally get to this tree down in the middle of like kind of a major roadway. So we're like, getting our chains out and chainsaws, and we're bucking this thing up and trying to drag it out of the way. Boom, residential structure fire. And as you guys probably have seen, with your careers, when you add air to fires, it can really exacerbate
for sure.
fire behavior.
Sure.
And so,
I mean, firefighting in a vacuum would just be no fun.
Yeah, 100%. So we get there, and the neighborhood, the meantime, like as we had been running calls all night too, there was these eerie, like red and green lights in the sky, and they were transformers exploding everywhere. So power was going out in patches all over the city because it was really blowing now. The wind that they had predicted actually arrived, and we were surprised, but they finally got it right. But so here we are. We're rolling up to the structure fire. And we get there, and it's like a 2-story, like mid-century, 1940s-ish, 1950s-ish house. And the bottom floor is ripping, but there's no power. The light of the fire is kind of lighting the upstairs, but we didn't notice that the upper floors were just black smoke everywhere. So roll up, I get a line to the front door. I hit it through the window. The resident said, okay, everybody's out. So I hit it through the window really quickly to kind of darken it down, and then crawled through the front door, hung a left turn, and start, knocking down the fire as much as I can. And I'm getting it. And all of a sudden, my lieutenant like kind of runs over my legs, and he's like, hey, I got to get another line in this room. Go upstairs. And I'm like, all right. So I start making my way upstairs. I turn around, and to me, like I was a younger, like rookie firefighter, I'm like, oh, I'm definitely now to the floor, like hiding behind a nozzle, opening the nozzle wide open. And I made the first landing, and I'm just like belly.
Like you've got the theme to Backdraft playing in your head at this point.
Oh,
well, I had the theme to like, whatever funeral there was. I was like, this is it. Like
this is as dangerous as it gets.
Yeah, I was like, this is it. And I, had embers like going down my neck and stuff. And I was like, okay, this is what I came here for.
Right.
This is the real deal.
Yeah, you're in the shit.
Yeah.
And I'm looking behind me, and the fire downstairs has flared back up again. So, until there's a line through that door, I've got one option, and it's out the window if it really, really turns to shit. And I keep on telling myself, like, I can feel my mask like getting super hot, and the air in the back of my throat's getting hot, and I'm breathing super fast. Like,
that's scary.
I'm definitely, yeah. And so I'm pinned to the stairs. I'm like, kind of eking my way up to get to the hallway of the second floor. And like I said, I've got the bail wide open, and I'm just hoping that like something good starts happening. And so, I'm getting some knockdown, luckily, and then it seemed like it got really big. And then luckily I could hear just the pounding of the truck company on the roof. And they're up there, and this is an older home. So like dimensional lumber nailed in, there's no trusses to peel apart. And so they can spend a little time on the roof. And I started getting immediate relief from them. I couldn't make the bedroom. Yeah, they started venting the fire. Yeah. I couldn't make the bedroom right away. And the lieutenant that I had, comes up, he's like, hey, and he kicks a hole in the wall next to us. And so we put the nozzle in there. That helped a lot too. And, I just remember kind of like, we ran, our Viber alerts started going off. And so I was like, all right, let's clear out. We had a crew right behind us, take the nozzle. We had gotten some pretty good knockdown and darkened down the fire. And I just remember walking out like, what the fuck just happened? It just, that first real structure fire, you go, oh man, that was like a real one where you're like, man, I'm a little bit alone right now. It's getting hotter and hotter. Right. And, I need things to start going well. That's probably was like, oh, I feel like this was kind of a close shave. Well, when we walked outside, somebody goes, where were you guys? We go, we were in the upstairs. You go, you were up there? And we said, yeah. He goes, look, someone accidentally put a fan in the door. And when they did, it looked like someone put gasoline on a fire. And it was like, no wonder it got so damn hot up there.
Right.
Wow. I was
turned it into a forge.
100%. I'm thinking like, oh, I suck at firefighting. I should be better with my nozzle technique. I'm having no effect on
how did I? Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, oh, okay. These guys actually put a fan in the door in addition to all the wind that was just like packing this place full of oxygen. So it got pretty hot, but whatever.
The homeowners put the fan there?
Now,
the homeowners put the fan?
No. Somebody actually put a ventilator, like a positive pressure fan to try and clear out the downstairs, not knowing that, they had operations going to the upstairs. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
A little bit of a failure in accountability that I can attribute to the chaos of the night and companies coming from all over the place because we were scattered to the wind, like, figuratively and literally. So
Wow.
I can only imagine, to me, right? Like, for the equivalent for that for police officers would be going into combat against a deadly opponent and realizing you're fighting for your life, right? The moment you realize you're fighting for your life, the question is, are you going to do the right thing and win? Whether it's, you get the suspect into custody, or you are able to get a deadly force altercation ended with deadly force, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right. The moment you realize, or you're able to take that breath and go, okay, I'm not going to, now I thought I was going to die, or there was a chance, but I kept my cool and I got through it. And now I'm on the other side and I'm not dead. And holy shit, I passed the test.
Yep.
So
yeah,
that's, I think, the only, I don't know. Chuck, what do you think? That you guys probably have seen this enough to, I think that's about the only equivalent to the emotional experience.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, where you're like,
I'm on the move for a second, guys, because I am on call.
no
And I
worries.
got to check my, I got to make sure I'm not missing a big ass fire.
No.
I'm off duty. I'm off duty, but on call. So it's kind of a weird thing, but
no,
good overtime.
You're the BC who's on call. So
that's right.
I would say that's a pretty much equivalent to like being in a shitty situation and knowing, like, yeah, this is gonna, if things don't get better, we're gonna get fucked up.
Yeah,
this is
100%.
It's
pretty bad.
going to go bad for me, or it's going to go bad for somebody else, but it's going to go bad for somebody. I just need to make sure it's not me.
Absolutely. And then you come out, you're like, how the fuck did we make it from that? That was wild. Yeah.
And just with the fire going again in the room that I had just knocked down, it was like, oh, well, there goes the stairwell. That's not an option anymore. And forward is not an option unless I get water on it. And so, the window on the landing was starting to become like the viable option. Which is kind of, and I was just in the back of my mind, like, hey man, if it's like to the point where your shit is melting on your head, dive out that window.
Right.
But it never got to that point. Thankfully, it felt like it was getting that close. And
that's I don't want to have to contact shot my own finger off with my backup gun, but I will if I need to.
I get to give it up to you firefighters, man. I've been in a full-blown working fire with no apparatus, nothing, just my uniform
gear
and a gun.
Well, yeah, you're on duty. We just get in as far as you can and then you back out.
Yep.
Yeah, no, we didn't back out. We couldn't. We had an armed suspect, possible hostage, and we didn't know. And long story short, I'm not gonna get into the whole full story, but we were there and suspect set his room on fire, and we were in his living room, and it was an apartment. And when we knocked that door down, and we almost got into a shooting prior, but when we knocked the door down and it was a full-blown fire was over us, shooting a line into the room. And they're like, push, go. And I was like, no fucking way, dude. I can feel shit was singeing off my face.
Oh yeah.
I was like, I was like, it's too hot. And they're like, okay, it's ready now, because they were knocking it down. And we go to make entry, and I got to tell you, mattresses are tinder boxes, and they're hot.
Yeah, they're
very hot, and it's hard to put them out.
Yeah.
And we thought we put it out, and we go to make entry, and it just fucking ignites like something out of Backdraft, right? Like we're just real fast. And I stop in the middle of the door because I'm pointing, and I was like, fuck no. I hit the ground. I'm like, hit it. And they hit it some more. And I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Making entry in there when we knocked the fire down, because suspect was in the bathroom, pinned in. That was super hot even after it was out. And I gotta give it to you guys. I'm not wearing shit, so it's way hotter for me. But I can only imagine being in somewhere where you have a full-blown working fire all around you, not just in front of you, but all around you. The heat that comes off of that when you're saying like that mask is just, it's burning on your face, and it's just so hot, you can feel it, and you're still sticking your ground. Like, that is commendable. That is some intense stuff right there.
Well, your eyeballs feel hot, and you can feel the top of your scalp starting in your ears. Even though we have flash hoods and stuff, you start to feel your ears go, and any exposed skin.
Like, my skin's going to start bubbling.
Yeah, absolutely. Any exposed skin around your wrist and stuff. I mean, it happens. And I can always tell when my scalp starts to get starts to burn really bad, and my eyeballs are getting hot. It's like, all right, yeah, it's hot in here. So something has to happen now. Either we got to get more gallons per minute, or I need vertical ventilation, or we're going to need to retreat a little bit to a tenable position, and I'm sure the same is true when you're firing guns at people. It's like, if you get in too close and you're exposed versus, all right, let's just back behind this wall a little bit and we'll return fire that way.
Yeah. Distance equals time,
Totally.
Always, and it was interesting. I want to say it's your publicist or whoever who set this interview up, talked about how you had 2 line of duty deaths.
Yeah.
What caused you to create the company that you currently co-found.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we want to talk about the company, but we also want to talk about how you got there. So if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we talked about, dedicating this episode or whatever. Do we want to do that now, or we'll do that later?
We'll do it at the end.
We can do that
cool.
at the end. Yeah.
Sounds good. Okay. So I had put in 8 years as a firefighter prior to arriving in Contra Costa County. So I had a few fires under my belt. And was, as it is in the police department, you guys can just lateral anywhere, it seems like. In the fire department, if you're like, oh, I want to go from LA City to San Francisco, you're starting at the bottom. You just do. It's just like, oh, it doesn't matter if you had 10 years, you were a lieutenant or whatever. You're starting in recruit school. Now we're starting to do more laterals, but back in 2007, it was like, you want to be a part of this fire department? Go back to being a probationary boot. And that's where I was.
Nobody wanted to leave.
Yeah, well, it was that, and it was just they didn't have the apparatus for any sort of lateral movement. So it was like, well, we can't really trust that you have this certificate until we can, so what it's
anyway, right.
Yeah. So I was a recruit at Contra Costa County Fire in July of 2007 in our academy. And I got a call on a Saturday morning from a buddy who worked there. And he's like, have you seen the news? And I was kind of like, oh, did you guys get a big fire? What? And he's like, no, dude, we lost 2 of our own last night. I was like, when I found out what kind of fire they had died in, it was like, I've been to that fire several times, as have many firefighters. It was in a 900 square foot house. There were a lot of contributing factors to why the fire had progressed, which is always sort of the case, right? With line of duty deaths. And there were communication issues and things like that. But that just it was a shock to the system. Like, whoa, I've been to that fire.
That could have been me.
100%. And so I think it had a profound impact on all of us. Every line of duty death, especially inside, when it is during active duty, when you're on a wildland fire or a residential or a commercial structure fire, or, doing a technical rescue, that always causes this like foundational sort of seismic jolt that you're like, okay, I would have made the same decision, or, I've been in that situation before and I just got lucky.
Right.
So you start looking at all the contributing factors.
Right.
So
would I have done something differently? And if not, I would have been gone.
100%. So I, about 2 years later, was working at the station where those guys had been dispatched from that eventually died in the line of duty. And it was creepy. You're like, all right. I mean, it's a pretty active station in the Richmond area, in San Pablo, a lot of fires, a lot of gang activity, a lot of things happening there, a lot of like all the urban elements are happening. And so you're like, all right, well, I better keep my head on a swivel and really do my risk benefit analysis and, just really go in guns blazing with a lot of water. And about a year into that station assignment, I got approached by a battalion chief that was like, hey, we have the accident report in hand. We're basically being tasked with coming up with a better accountability system for our personnel in the hazard zone. Like, if 5 cops run into a building after a suspect, 5 cops better run out, right?
Right.
Like, but with the suspect, So, but whoever is your supervisor knows exactly who all 5 of you are, right? And so that's accountability with regard to fire service as well. If 10 firefighters go into a burning building, you better know how they're assigned, distributed, what, when, and where, and how they're doing something, and then when they get out. That's personnel accountability. It's a big deal.
Right.
This is why firefighters are so much better at the incident command system than police officers are.
Right. Well, we get to practice it a lot.
Yep. Exactly.
Hold on real quick. The reason why is because police departments don't harp on it. And the only way you get additional schooling on it is if you go to college. And in some cases, some agencies do put on like ICS courses.
Yeah.
But it's not for everyone. And it's only for upper management, but it should be for everyone, because if your upper management is failing and you have other people to rely on, you can kind of get it done. And I think the fire department has leaps and bounds, and I've been saying this forever, has leaps and bounds ahead of law enforcement in like tactical situations, not tactical situations, but like incident command situations when it comes to like a lot of these things.
Critical incident.
Is because critical incident. I mean, they do like a lot of these courses and they get trained on this stuff way more than law enforcement.
Yeah, no, I mean, we just trained on it the other day in the IMCI context with law enforcement for active shooter, and it just, immediately, boom, the incident command system is initiated on our end, and then we try and incorporate in unified command with cops. And so it's something, but it is something that we didn't get immediately into that night, which was deemed a contributor by NIOSH as one of the causal factors. There were a bunch of other factors. It was like a delayed alarm. There was a private alarm company that really sort of confused the issue and maybe slowed the response. So there was a lot going on there. But
explain who NIOSH is to the non-firefighter.
National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, and it's basically the NTSB of industrial accidents. So if there's a firefighter line of duty death, you're gonna get a NIOSH report. They're going to come in, they're going to investigate. They'll do it a lot of times in partnership or, in reference to OSHA or Cal OSHA. They're not the only organization, but normally
they are the organization.
They pretty much are. And we read those reports, of like what to do in the future, and things that worked on incidents and things that didn't. And so when the NIOSH report came out, we were dinged on incident command. So then consequently, our chiefs were arguing at the county level about what the best incident command system was. And this is where tablet command comes from. Prior to, all the analog incident command that we did was either with a dry erase marker and a whiteboard and listening to who's coming to your incident in like a hard run sheet that comes on a station printer, or and then you would like transcribe that onto a notebook. And then maybe some really creative guys would have like Velcro tags and would move them from like one column to the next, or magnets, like refrigerator magnets.
Oh, yeah, we had magnets.
Magnets and binders, baby.
Totally.
Yeah.
The T-card.
So it was like, okay, that's good. And so what they were arguing about at the county level was like, should we do Velcro or do we do some sort of like name tag?
Of course they would be arguing over some stupid shit like that.
Totally. And in fairness, in Tacoma, when we would roll to fires, I had a little clip with my name tag on it, and I would throw it up to the front seat to the lieutenant or captain. He'd clip me to him, and then that would stay on the front seat. And at some point, an incident safety officer might grab all those clips and put it on this huge plexiglass ring board and run around. It was like a tambourine, but that's what was happening in the analog world prior to.
Right.
And good organizations were doing something like that prior to the digital age. So this chief goes, "Hey man, you worked in Tacoma and Kent." And I was like, "Yeah." "Did you guys use incident accountability?" He's like, "Yeah, we did Velcro in Kent, and we did like key tags in Tacoma." He's like, "Can you give a presentation on that? Because we are arguing at the county level, and we want to see how you guys did it up there." I was like, "All right." So I went home. I think I was sleep deprived from running calls all night the night before at that station. And I think I vaguely remember going to my garage, like going through file cabinet and pulling out the curriculum on that. And like, I kind of thumbed through it a little bit, set it on my kitchen counter, went to go lay on the couch. I pulled out my awesome new iPhone 2 and I pulled up a game. This is in like 2009 or something, 2008. I pulled up a game called Words with Friends. Do you guys know that game?
I do.
Yes.
Words with
Okay.
nerds.
Yeah,
We used to
totally.
call it. Mhm.
So
It's Scrabble.
it's Scrabble. And what you
Yeah.
do, instead of grabbing a wooden tile and putting it on the game board, you tap and drag a tile onto a game board and you spell a word. It could be 5 letters, 6 letters, 3 letters, whatever it is. Then some guy from some other part of the world spells a word in reference to your word, right?
Right.
So now I'm like, holy shit. I just spelled a word and some person in a remote location knows exactly the 5 letters that I just put out there. Why can't a division supervisor on floor 15 that's on fire know that I just sent them 5 resources that are headed up the stairs right now? And so I was like, in like visions and images of like Risk and Battleship and, you know, any strategic game. I was like, oh my God, yeah, no, this is, and guys were already bringing these to work. Like they were like, you know, doing Google Maps and they were getting turn-by-turn directions and they were using it as a reference tool for like hazardous materials.
It was
like,
already becoming a pocket data assistant.
100%. The tablet, tap and drag, like the Minority Report kind of concepts were coming into view. And it was like, okay, here's what we do.
Oh, Google Street View.
Yeah, totally. All of that stuff.
That shit is
Huge, especially for you guys.
Oh yeah.
Definitely. Let's see what this how it exits. Where's this guy going to shoot us from? Where do we shoot him?
Yep.
Google Maps is a big thing we pull from.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was like, and same with us, you know, because we like to see roof lines, we like to see terrain features. We want to see if there's yard cars, if this is going to be a hoarder's house.
Which
you know, Google,
it will be.
Yeah, yeah, especially in Cocoa, especially in Cocoa County. So I just like started making these drawings on literally butcher paper and like with colored pencils and a straight edge, you know. And I was like, let's take all these analog techniques that these guys have been doing for decades, you know, like information, whether it's a Velcro tag or, you know, an engine number in whiteboard, and let's just digitize it onto a game, onto a tablet. Let's slightly gamify it and let's put a timer on it so that we can track them time in and time out. And let's make this kind of automated. And so, you know, my original vision was like, okay, like a digital tactical worksheet, you know. I've got 5 engines, 2 trucks. I'm going to plug them into various tasks to support the tactics and the strategy of this thing. Guys are already doing that on a notebook. So let's just do this on an iPad and we're going to call it good. But I am a total non-tech person. And I've tried to become better over the years and it's been at glacial pace. But I knew a guy who was really good at that, and his name is Will Pigeon. He's currently our CEO and CTO, and he's also the co-founder. So I kind of composed an email. I was like, okay, dude, this is the idea. This is how it works. This is kind of my initial drawings, and here you go. Check it out. I want to see what you think. And he's like, oh my God, that's totally brilliant. Let's totally do that. So we kind of spent maybe the first half year, a year at a coffee shop in Berkeley, literally. I know it sounds really cliche in Silicon Valley, but like, you know, we passed napkins.
Stereotypes for a reason, folks.
100%. I'm living it. So the napkin got passed back and forth between him and I for a little while about like, what should this minimum viable product look like? You know, and okay, look, I don't have a tech background. I don't have an MBA. I majored in biology and I played college sports and that's it, you know. So, you know,
I'm going to argue that that's why it works, is because you are your own demographic.
For sure.
Right.
You ask somebody to create something that you could use.
Correct. And like the ground floor experience, right? Like, and that was kind of the mandate between Will and I was like, look, if our guys from coast to coast don't recognize this, even if it's on an iPad, it should look like it's on a notebook. and they should recognize it. And so let's see if we can make some sort of recognizable platform to manage incidents that has some cool back end stuff. So after about a year or so, we're like, all right, hey, fuck it, let's make a company. So we established an LLC. We both put some money into it, and then we went out and we raised some money, and simultaneously we were recruiting all these different software development firms and like interviewing them. And we had a guy helping us with that, who was incredibly helpful with that process. And we settled, thankfully, on a company that was from Ireland, but then had developers in different parts of Europe. But what I liked about them being from Ireland is that, sadly, I mean, it's kind of a weird, perverse, but the fact that they had all that strife with explosions and in the 70s and 80s, and they had a really good incident response, infrastructure. You did, like, with some of the firms that we interviewed, we had to like explain what 911, like, okay, you dial 911. What's 911? Okay, so a fire department, why does a fire engine show up to a medical? Okay, so, but these guys got it. Like, immediately they got the American Fire Service, they got the sort of, I'll say, for lack of a better term, the first world or the developed world fire service concept, and they're able to develop against that. So we start making these wireframes and like, okay, yeah, it should look like this, and screen one should look like that, blah, blah, blah. And kind of accelerating a little bit, we got to, and we did a bunch of alpha testing too. So we took guys like yourselves, but in the firefighter, context, and said, hey, we're going to put some screens in front of you and you tell us what you think they do. And what that's called is alpha testing. And Scott Shearer, one of the guys that was one of our original advisors, really helped us with that. And so we alpha tested, and we got positive feedback. So we launched the product in the App Store in early 2013, and then we showed up.
While you're still a firefighter.
Oh yeah. I had just made captain actually by 2013.
Wow.
So it was.
I just know what a crazy, like, there's always the guy who says, hey, I'm gonna try doing this, and everybody goes, okay, whatever, and then they actually do it.
Well, so that was the thing too. It's like, I remember the moment where I called Will, because I remember I had an actual house phone, back in 2009, and I was like, I remember looking at my wife with my finger on the whatever button you call it, that the dial tone button,
right?
And I was like, if I make this phone call, things are gonna be different. And she's like, okay, whatever. I'm like, look, I was like, I remember, like, I go, I don't want to be that guy that 10 years from now I'm sitting in bed reading Time magazine next to you and like, oh, these firefighters invented this thing, and I'm like, I thought of that and I didn't do anything about it. So that's it was kind of that fear of being like, I've never done anything in my life like that, where it's like, you thought about it, and then it's like, well, okay, let's try and make it real. And it is really hard. It's like a 97% failure rate for startups. So it was really like this, like, go for broke, go for it attitude. So we raised money, we launched the product in 2013. I had just made captain that January. And I remember we debuted the product at the IAFC Technology Summit in Coronado. And the way they had
not a bad place to debut anything.
Totally. Right. I was like, hey, Navy SEALs, take a look at this. I think this could be tactically helpful. So they had us all in these little, how like hotels, you have the little conference rooms, and they accommodate, like, this room accommodates 12 and this accommodates 25. And we're in the
fire marshal occupancy.
Totally.
Right.
So we were in a room that was supposed to accommodate 40 people. And then we had a bunch of other vendors that were also making simultaneous presentations, and people picked which one they wanted to go to. We literally had like 100 people like spilling out the doors and lining the walls watching this. And it wasn't because we were this great new Google. It was because I think a lot of people had been thinking about an interface like this, because prior to, what we had in terms of computers in our workflow were bolted on tough books with a keyboard that we basically pounded on about 3 times a day because they'd like crash or they would, so it's just like, well, this thing is never going to serve me as an incident command platform. It's not a mobile product, so guys had a built-in hatred for that. And so I think this, like, the fact that like maybe a couple fire guys, people of the cloth, so to speak, had come up with something that other people had been thinking about, I think was compelling. And then about 2 weeks later, we were at a firehouse convention in San Diego. And we had a lot of fire chiefs coming by and were like, you guys nailed it. You nailed it, but you need to CAD integrate it. And so the last, integration with CAD, meaning like
absolutely
the call automatically splashes in there, as do your resources.
Yeah, like it populates everything you have, all the resources right there.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know it, computer automated dispatch, right? I think it's aided dispatch, computer automated dispatch. It's a program, or it's a system by which calls are generated and tracked and resources are allocated and sent. So if you can integrate with that system automatically, I mean, it's kind of plug and play at that point, right?
Exactly. So like, to put it in the police context, if you have 10 cop cars staffed by 1 or 2 police officers en route for an incident, it's going to tell you the exact and accurate cars plus the accurate staffing rolling to that, which is probably true in the old tough book era. But what you get is a movable token that you can deploy, time, place, track on an incident command board. Is the difference between us and a web-based, tough book based product. So the 2 most unlikely fire departments became some of our first enterprise customers: Stockton and Oceanside. 2 gritty, older school style, saltier departments, leather helmet wearing dudes that were like, we want to integrate that. We were surprised by that. We thought when we talked to them, it was going to be beers and football. And what we got was, we'll purchase X amount of licenses and, do you provide training and this and that. So that was really interesting. And we probably, of course we offered it to Contra Costa County for free because you have to, because you're working there. And then San Mateo County and several fire departments in San Mateo County were also integrating it as well, as were all the Northcom fire departments around Oceanside, so like Carlsbad, Encinitas, Vista.
So your idea worked, and you're still doing that, and you're still working as a chief.
Yes, sir. Yeah, because so selling government is painfully slow. So we have about 625-ish fire departments in the United States and Canada that are enterprise deployments for Tablet Command, including like large cities like Charlotte, North Carolina.
Let's go back. What's it called?
Tablet Command.
Tablet Command. Got it.
Tablet Command. You can find us.
How do people? Yeah, because I don't want to make sure we get time for our dedication, but also we get to tell people. I mean, we kind of ended up doing about a 5-minute commercial, but people still don't know what they can get. So where is this?
Yeah, you could find us on all the social media channels called Tablet Command. And we also have a website, tabletcommand.com. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, LinkedIn, Twitter. So, this podcast will be featured in our social media channels as well.
Wow.
You can see, go ahead.
We'll do a stinger and we'll send it over to you with all the audio and stuff like that for you.
Right on. Yeah, good. It's and you can, in our social media channels, you can find everything from customer testimonials from very large cities around the United States. Hey, I hated technology. I didn't think it was going to work. It really worked. It saved me in this or that. And then there's a lot of how-to stuff. And there's just, a lot of different bits that sort of extol the benefits of, having real-time incident command, alerting, notification, navigation, mapping, all that stuff.
So I'm guessing being an acting battalion chief leaves you very little time, hence your partner being the CEO, because it sounds like your company would keep you busy at this point by itself.
Yeah, 100%. But we have about 16 to 18 employees. Several of them are either active firefighters or retired deputy chiefs. And
see, that's cool.
So we have some great pedigree within the company.
That's
awesome. And in fact, I, partially dedicate this episode to them and what they do for us as a company. And I can't say enough good things about the entire Tablet Command team.
And that's great that you it's put up or shut up, right? If you've got the subject matter experts and you can employ them, why not?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, so we would be remiss because this all started with firefighters who were lost in the line of duty.
Yeah.
That you looked at and said, that could have been me.
Yep.
And this whole thing that you have identified and how your company got started was because of these two men. And so you would like to dedicate your episode to these two firefighters that inspired your company.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Scott Desmond, Matt Burton, Captain Matt Burton, Engineer Scott Desmond. They are part of that larger landscape of firefighter line of duty deaths where, communications or the fog of war, got the better of them when these two men in particular were, they gave their lives to attempt to save two others, and that was in large part an inspiration for this company. And, it had that event not happened, who knows if this company would be around or not, but we certainly mourn their loss and, pay respectful homage to what they gave to the fire service and, and their families as well,
Rest easy, brothers. We've got it from there. And Andrew, man, congratulations on being I always joke around and I say that firefighting is your other job, right?
Yeah.
Firefighters like carpenters or, bricklayers or skid steer drive, they have all, firefighting is their other job. We always joke, but for you, that genuinely seems to be the case because this side project that you launched is now its own thing with its own people. And you're just
it's a retirement program.
Yeah. Right.
College tuition, I'll be, I mean, it's just, seamless communication. And I'm kind of sounding like a shill for this, but I just really, if Tablet Command never existed, I would be saying the exact same thing. Seamless communication and being on the same platform is a no-brainer.
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
We should all 100%.
Far too often do law enforcement and fire not have the accurate information when they're on a scene together or when responding to a scene. You guys will have one thing, we'll have a different. There is a miscommunication somewhere in between. So if this can bridge that gap down the road, and I'm not just talking for fire, but if it could bridge the gap and work along the lines with the ICS system inside of law enforcement as well as in fire for those cities who share resources and things like that, that would change the freaking game, especially when responding to these things. You know what I mean? It would be great. And I think it's awesome.
And it's entirely possible. I mean, one of the things we have to nurse along is sort of our collective industry, public safety, and they're embracing technology as part of their aggressive operations. And we have several fire departments that have and some law enforcement that have proven that it can be done. And again, we just all want to be, the grand concept is we all need to be on the same page, especially when it's getting
Tom's
hot.
No battle.
Totally.
Absolutely. Well, as we're getting ready to close out this episode, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's listening. And if you want to be a part of Tablet Command's community and you want to, whether you're a chief or you're trying to give this to your chief, tell them about Tablet Command and see if it's right for you and see if it's the right fit for you, because seamless communication sounds pretty fucking awesome. But if you like today's podcast and the content we provide, please help us out by rating and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever podcast platform you subscribe to. Our podcast is available on all major podcast streaming platforms, as well as on our YouTube. Reviews and ratings are how podcast platforms decide what to recommend. So your reviews really help us grow the show. Also, please give us a follow on Instagram at war_stories_official and our Facebook at War Stories Podcast. If you already follow us, please like and share our posts. If you click the link in our bio on Instagram and Facebook, you'll be able to reach all of our social media sites and our website. Another way to support us is by visiting our website at www.warstoriesofficial.com and grab some of our merch. We have shirts, patches, stickers, hoodies available. And if you think you have a story that you want to be a guest on the show or you want to tell, please email your info and a brief description of your story to us at booking.warstories@gmail.com. Again, that is booking.warstories@gmail.com so I can get you booked. We are looking for veterans, law enforcement, firefighters, medics, but also corrections, dispatchers, and nurses. If you have a friend who you think would be a great fit, let them know about us and give them our booking email. Thank you for the support. Stay safe.
And until our next episode, come home with your shield or on it.